allegiance. Mr. Abbey, would you lead us off, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of the August 2nd minutes. Any questions or comments?
They be approved as we had just two little corrections.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes, minutes have been approved. Now we'll open, that's annoying.
Robots.
Now we'll open the meeting to public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the board on any active applications? No, given nobody is approached, we'll go to the first agenda item. This is for a proposed tier 3 solar energy facility. It's a continuation of a site plan review for the property at 9155 Brewerton Road. The applicant's here. Good evening.
Good evening. Great to see the planning board tonight. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
And CVE North America, I'm Carson Wynand, Senior Project Developer for this project. I'm also here tonight with two of my colleagues, James Stevens with Consulticon and Mark Lukasik with Tectonic Engineering. I'd like to have James Stevens review the land use memo that we submitted after I speak for a little bit as well, if that'd be allowable.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Thank you. So I haven't presented to the planning board. Previous meetings where we attended, I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. We had our attorney and one of our other internal engineers speak. So I'd like to make a few points. Happy to answer any questions, and then we can hand it off to Mr. James Stevens. I'll skip the background on the company and the intro to the project. I think you know that. I'll just go right into the project benefits. So I think it's important to lay them out and really think about them. If you go to the next slide, thank you. So first, there's near-term tax revenue benefits for the town, county, and school. If you run the numbers, there'll be over $800,000 in tax revenue without a strain on government services. It's highly net accretive, this revenue. You know, there's no additional kids in the schools. There's no traffic on the roads. We're not expanding sewer and water. It's a very low impact use of town property. We're also open to negotiating a pilot or a host community benefit agreement or an educational contribution agreement. These are some of the different types of agreements we've executed at the local level on other projects to make sure we get the money directed to the specific agencies as the town pleases, as the town would like to see. So, you know, for example, the educational contribution agreement can provide a lump sum upfront payment to the school. That's one example. That was attractive in other jurisdictions. This revenue, you don't have to wait for future development. You know, we're ready to go. We're ready to construct if we get approval, and you'd be generating revenue from a currently unutilized piece of land. You don't have to wait for future development down the road. There's benefits, there's positive net present value benefits to this project. Millions of dollars in energy savings will be distributed across 800 local residents. Because it's a community solar program, we can deliver a 10% discount on their monthly national grid utility bills for the next 25 years, every month for the next 25 years. 50% or more of those 800 local residents will be LMI, low income. And we'll make a commitment to source these subscribers, you know, residential homeowners with a national grid bill in the town first. We want these benefits to be as local to the project as possible, then the county, and then the broader upstate area. Just a couple other comments on that. You know, there's no upfront fees for these subscribers to subscribe to the project, and there's no ongoing or there's no termination fees if they want to get out of the contract. I don't know why they would want to get out of the contract. It's a guaranteed savings, but it's almost too good to be true. Sometimes I've heard that. It is just a clean savings with no headaches. Third benefit, millions of kilowatt hours of clean energy will be produced for the next 35 years. That's the expected useful life of the project, 35 years. It's a ton of clean energy. We'll be displacing brown energy from the grid. If you run the numbers, it's equivalent to removing 1,400 cars from the road each year for the next 35 years each year. It's also equivalent to planting 7,600 acres of forest each year for the next 35 years. Finally, a quick little perk from CVE North America on each project. We have a green initiative. We donate $1 per panel to a local environmental organization. So there'll be $11,000 donated when the project's constructed. Project impacts, or a lack thereof. We feel like all of the potential project impacts don't exist or are being thoroughly mitigated. So starting with visual impacts, I'll actually start with the bottom bullet here and sort of work up. I know it's a lot of small print on the screen, but there's very limited visual impacts just by the nature of the property and how we're positioning the project on that property. So that property is surrounded by existing vegetation. Our property is set back 650 feet to 850 feet from Brewerton Road. There's no elevation changes in the nearby area that would allow a vantage into the property or up to the property. And there's 0 residential abutters, with the exception of maybe one home in the very northwest corner on Mud Mill Road. It's as low impact as it gets in terms of siting, in my opinion. Secondly, it is visible from the park on Mud Mill Road on the north side of the property. And we are mitigating against that with a robust landscaping plan that now includes vinyl slats in the fence. So that's an update since the last meeting. We've added vinyl slats. We'll leave the color up to the town. It could be green, it could be gray, it could be black. We don't have a strong preference. And outside of that fencing with the vinyl slats will be robust trees, evergreen trees, deciduous trees, and shrubs. One other important point, these panels will be mounted on trackers. So they face east in the mornings and west in the evenings. They track the sun throughout the day. They get to a maximum height of 9 feet. The fence is 7 feet. It will be opaque because of the vinyl slats. At nighttime, at noon, the panels are facing straight up, flat. They're 5 feet high only. And at nighttime, they return to this position 5 feet high. So only during a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the evening will the panels be higher than the fence, will be visible. And it'll just be the tops of the panels, only for a couple of hours in the morning, couple hours in the evening. The rest of the time will be completely hidden from view. All right, next slide. No noise impacts. We did a noise analysis. We located all the noise producing equipment, which are the inverters and transformers, on equipment pads that are in the center of the facility. They're the furthest away from the property lines as possible. The facility doesn't produce any noise at night. It's only during the daytime, and we measured the noise levels at the property lines, given where the equipment is located, how far they are away from the property lines. And the sound levels at those exterior property lines will be 33 decibels, 38 decibels, well below any zoning regulation. It's equivalent to a whisper or a quiet library at that decibel level. No traffic impacts. So traffic will be limited to 1 maintenance trip per month, 2 to 3 landscaping trips per year. Maybe a few additional landscaping trips in the first year to get the landscaping settled in. But once it's fully constructed and settled in, there's no traffic. And then finally, point number 4 on the next slide, I just want to say that we're not there's no land use or future development impacts here. We're utilizing general commercial land that's zoned general commercial that allows for those uses up there. Hotels, motels, gas stations, car washes, restaurants, drive-ins, auto sales and auto service, retail sales, vet clinics, solar, and public utility stations. And, we're utilizing 80 acres in the back of the property that is largely wetlands, that wouldn't be a great fit for any of those general commercial uses. And we're leaving the valuable frontage along Brewerton Road. It goes along Brewerton Road and then 500 feet back, the entire length of the property. It totals 20 acres. So that will remain open to a general commercial use. Those uses are best served on frontage, like the frontage we're leaving on Brewerton Road. And, we're utilizing the low value land that's covered in wetlands. Solar is one of the few uses that you can put on top of wetlands. You couldn't build a hotel or a gas station on top of wetlands. This land that we're utilizing is not a great fit for general commercial. It's not a great fit for residential. And in conclusion, we're looking forward to working with the town on this project. We hope we can ultimately receive a positive recommendation. We're open to comment and feedback. We're willing to work with the town. We want to be a good local steward for the next 35 years. We want to do this the right way. But ultimately, we think this is a project that is very low impact for the community with many immediate monetary and environmental benefits. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions. I think, yeah.
Mrs. Hogan, questions?
Are we doing question first, or did we have another presenter?
Yep, maybe happy to take some questions now, but also maybe we give James 5-10 minutes to walk through the memo that we submitted, the Consulticon memo.
Hi,
How are you?
how you doing? I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank
Good. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is James Stevens. I'm a principal with Consulticon. We're economic development planners and management consultants. We've been in business since 1991, and in that time, we've completed over 1,000 projects, and including over 100 in New York State. We work all over the country, but we've most recently worked in Onondaga County, evaluating the feasibility, economic and fiscal impacts of the proposed aquarium development that's there. We've also worked extensively in Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Ithaca, and Oneonta, as well as Syracuse. So we prepared this memo based on CVE's request, but based on the last time that this project was in front of the planning board and the concerns that there may be an overburden due to this project. The zoning code says that town board will strive to permit the location of the solar energy systems in such a manner so that no one area or neighborhood in the town would be overburdened by the placement of those systems. And so the zoning code itself doesn't really define what potential burdens are. It also doesn't define really that area that would be the area of burden, I guess. So we took the tack of really looking at 4 different areas and then 4 different kinds of potential burdens that the project may have. So the first part of the memo is just kind of reviewing the code, as I mentioned, in the site plan, the description of the plan, the allowable uses that Carson mentioned. The potential burdens that we identified were the traffic impacts. Carson discussed those, the visual and open space impacts, the degree to which the project is visible and contributes to the general appearance of the area, such that it diminishes the attractiveness of the area. And so really, how does the project affect the kind of open space character of the area, which I think in this instance is a nice one because it's sandwiched between a park and as well as a golf course. So there's significant open space directly adjacent to this proposed site. Looking at the land use impacts, which I think is one of the biggest portion of this and really, you know, the commercial district zoning, so that the use of land for solar development that would reduce the amount of vacant land available for commercial. And so we're talking about, you know, whether or not this project would supplant alternative uses in that corridor. And then the fiscal impacts of the project, which Carson identified some of those. So we don't really think that the energy system does not overburden the area due to traffic impacts. The traffic, as Carson mentioned, would be very minimal on the site and compared to other types of uses, which would generate a lot more traffic, like retail and the commercial uses that were identified. As far as open space and visual impacts, you know, about 71% of the lot one, which is the solar development lot, would be maintained as open space. So really maintaining that character of the area in open space. And then the visibility, Carson mentioned too, that the project would be nominally visible, and then the mitigation plan helps to offset that. So we don't really think that there's an overburden due to open space or visual impacts. On the land use impacts, we looked at 4 different areas: the town of Cicero, general commercial zone parcels within the town, the area within 3 miles of the site. And we chose that because there are 2 other projects, solar projects, that are either under construction or in the permitting process. And so that there are a number of those projects in that area. So defining that as an area of potential impact, and then the general commercial zone parcels within 3 miles of the site. So those 4 areas, we tried to get an understanding of the amount of vacant land available for new development. And so that's what our work really analyzes, that based on property data that we collected from the state. And so about 28%, 29% of the total land in the town is vacant. And so the parcel itself represents less than 1% of the vacant land available. So 99% of the vacant land would be available for new development. So we don't think that it represents an overburden on the town. There's about 35% of the total land within 3 miles of the site is vacant and available for new development. So the Brewerton Road site then accounts for about 4% of the vacant land in that area. And so there would be 96% of the vacant land in that area available for new development. And so we don't think that you know, creates an overburden. Within the general zoning commercial district, that represents about 9% of the land in the town. And then within that district, about 40%, almost 40% of the land is vacant. And so that the site itself then represents 88% of the vacant land available for general commercial use. And so 92% would be available for new development. And then you kind of get the idea here in terms of the how we've structured this. So about within the vacant land within the general commercial zoning districts within 3 miles of the site, the vacant parcels are about 39% of that area. And so the site itself represents about 15% of the vacant land in the general commercial district within 3 miles of the site. So I think there's a substantial amount of land available for new development, both in the general commercial as well as within the 3 miles of the site. So looking at the types of commercial use that's currently on the Brewerton Road corridor, it's largely automotive uses and storage space being the most common uses. About 56% town-wide are in those categories. And then 73% of the land area within 3 miles is dedicated to that type of use. Other higher value uses such as retail, office, and apartments are concentrated elsewhere in town. So this is it. And I think one thing we should note is that some of these older and obsolete uses would also, in addition to vacant land, provide potential land for future redevelopment. So the absorption of new commercial development, thinking about that, there's about 534 acres of a general commercial property within 3 miles of the site. And so that would basically, over a 25-year period, equate to about 21 acres of absorption of that land annually. So as a comparison, the Walmart Supercenter is on 18 acres of land. So it's almost the equivalent of a new Walmart every year. Most commercial uses would require much smaller parcels, which are appropriate for the road frontage and the 20 acres that CV is planning on subdividing. So historic rates of absorption was about 8.8 acres annually between 2001 and 2019. There were 2 large projects with over 60 acres, and removing that, then it's about 3.3 acres. And then assuming that the historic rate of absorption goes on to the future, there'd be about 60 years of available vacant land within the general commercial district and 3 miles of the site to accommodate that new development. So really, we don't think that it overburdens the area by taking land away from alternative uses. And then I think, just looking out forward, the long range population is pretty stable within Onondaga County and Cicero. The Micron proposal will have a pretty big impact should it come to fruition. That impact will occur over a long period of time, about full employment, 9,000 by 2055. So far out in the future, and that may create demand for other jobs and employment land in the area. That most of that would occur in Clay. There's a substantial amount of vacant land in Clay, as well as at exit 30, I believe, in Cicero, because of the population would be south of the site, going to the site, and the traffic would get off at that exit and thereby bypass the Brewerton Road corridor, which is on the northern part of town. So the last area of impact is the fiscal impact, and Carson outlined that $825,000 in total taxes over the period, the 25-year period, and so its impact will be largely net to the town. So there are, as Carson mentioned, there's no school kids and the like. So I think it's reasonable to suggest that Cicero would not face the prospect of losing any new commercial development until the available supply of land is substantially depleted, and that would really take decades. So I think the fiscal revenues, realizing the fiscal revenues now, then holding out the potential for 5 or 10 year development, 5 or 10 years would then burden the town itself on lost revenue, as well as create a burden on the property owner by depriving him the income from the property. So this parcel would be a high value tax parcel compared to the other parcels that have been developed over the past 20 years. And so it would have a good return on the investment. So that's basically my report.
A lot of information.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. It's 20 pages. I'm sure you read it all. But thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, so we'll open up to questions. Mrs. Hogan?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my robot version of my voice, not filled with it. While I appreciate your number calculations, I think that if we as a board listen to the opinions of every solar company who came in
Actually-
and said,
Just, yeah, I'll turn that off.
Can you help? Try again.
that's a big voice.
There you go.
Pretty loud. While I appreciate your calculations, I think that if we as a board listen to the opinions of every solar company that comes in as to what's an overburden or underburden, every inch of our land would be covered in solar panels. So we have to be careful as to what that actually means to us, the residents who live here, as compared to someone coming in who's just making money and making profits out of it. So while I appreciate that, I personally think that we are already at our max of how many solar panels we need. So that's where I stand. I also think that, I think it bothers me that, you are allowed to build solar panels on wetlands, but nothing else. So I've still yet to hear anybody come up with some research as to how that, doesn't negatively affect our wetlands, as compared to building on it. So that, it bothers me that you're not allowed to plant a tree in a wetland, but you're allowed to plant a solar panel. So I think that that's like a bigger issue that, isn't necessarily a problem, but it's not a good argument for me, in my opinion, that you can't use this land for anything else and we might as well stick a solar panel on it and make some money off of it. So that bothers me. Where is it, I guess, that you guys came up with that you needed all of this 80 acres of land? Like, where does that decision making come into play that you needed this amount of land to have this amount of solar panels? Is my first question.
Yeah, so I'll tackle all three of those things. The first one. So we are using about 35 acres. It's 100 acres. We're leaving 20 with the property owner. We're using about 35 acres for our limits of disturbance. The rest is vacant and the rest is DEC wetlands, which we can't impact. We can only put panels over federal wetlands, Army Corps wetlands. We couldn't put our access road over we can't put our access road over wetlands. We can't put our equipment pads, which take a little bit of concrete, over wetlands. We can't impact state wetlands at all. All we can do is put panels over top of Army Corps wetlands, federal wetlands. That's because the Army Corps, first of all, the state doesn't take jurisdiction over it. They have no rights to it. And then the Army Corps just cares about the soils, so you're with an access road, you'd be permanently altering the soils. With a concrete pad, you'd be permanently altering the soils. With a warehouse, a 200,000 square foot warehouse, you'd be permanently altering the soils with the concrete that needs to be laid. And then more solar, solar is not going to keep coming. Siting solar is extremely difficult. You need the stars to align to find a site that's viable. You need enough acreage. We need at least 25 acres. 25 usable acres. It needs to be dry enough, not DEC wetlands. It needs to be flat enough. It needs to be near three-phase power lines that has capacity available. Those power lines need to feed into a substation that has capacity available. So eventually these power lines and these substations get clogged with projects and it's prohibitive. We can't build anymore. That property needs to be zoned for solar. So if we were in whatever other use in town, we couldn't submit an application. So those things together, it really makes it difficult to find a good site. And I've submitted this to the town before. There's really only a couple niche spots in the town of Cicero that are viable for solar. One's along Brewerton Road. And then one's along Route 31 from Northern Pines Golf Club to Bridgeport, Manoa Road. Those property owners along 31, they don't want to do anything. There's only like a couple more areas, niche spots to build solar. This is one of them. It'll eventually stop. It's going to stop very soon. If the sites were easier to find, there'd already be 10 applicants. We're scouring every day.
So my fear is that, Cicero is gonna start to look a little bit like up north. If you drive up north, you see a lot of solar panels over and over and over again, and it's just ruining the look of their land. So I think it's one of our jobs to help protect that and stop things like that. You guys had said only a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the evening that they're visible, which I think as a local resident is a lot. You know, those are the hours that you're driving around our area. So that's important to me, and I actually think that that shouldn't be belittled. I also think that trees take a very long time to help protect visually. So even though you say that you're gonna be planting and doing landscaping, I think it takes almost the whole duration that they're even usable for those trees to help visually. And then my last thing is just that I think that we need to probably start doing a better job of saying no to these so that they can start helping the local residents more than just 10% discount to 800 residents. I just don't think that's nearly enough to help our town. So I think that while it's helpful, I don't think that it's worth the cost. So those are my 2 cents and I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abbey,
Okay, I have to agree with Ashley on most everything.
Chuck,
You know,
these aren't going to work.
Oh.
Who's got to yell?
Just yeah.
I'll try. I agree with Ashley on most everything she said there, of course. I had a couple of points I wanted to bring up, though. One question is, for this project, are batteries involved? No batteries.
No batteries,
So no battery fires.
no battery fires.
Okay, that's good. Now, you mentioned about fencing, 7-foot fencing with the slats. We stay away from slats because after 15 years, they look like garbage.
Okay,
You know, weathered away and break and crack and everything. And quite frankly, we've had several solar farm applications come in, and what do we have in the town now? 5, maybe? General consensus is that that's probably enough. Even though your argument and your presentation is good, and then seems like a pretty good spot for that. Yep, that's
Okay.
it. Thanks.
Mr. Snyder.
Well, I do have to comment positive. Your presentation was excellent. You did a lot of background work that other solar outfits did not do or would not do. But I have a problem right now with the fact that we are paying a lot of money for a comprehensive plan for the town. And so at this point, I would probably be against this because we're too early. The comprehensive plan has not even, I believe, had a first issue to indicate what their thoughts are relative to any zoning in our whole town. If there wasn't a master plan being planned, I would still probably be able to say that I think enough is enough and we don't need any more. But I think our master plan may in fact indicate that there is more possibilities for that. But they're looking at the whole town to make that determination. So at this point, I would probably not be in favor of this project.
So can we just turn the mics off because we're still getting feedback? Lost?
A couple of quick questions. I thought at the last meeting, we had you people, the setback from Route 11 was 500 feet. The
It's-
reason I'm asking that question now, it's 800.
But there's different sections. One's a little setback further than the other.
Well, before that, you didn't meet the acreage requirement to have a solar farm in there. I don't have that right in front of me at the moment, but there's a percentage, so much.
Yeah,
Excuse me, much acreage for a solar farm.
I think that's 100. It needs to be 100 acres if it's in a
Didn't have,
residential zoning district.
I know, I discussed it. Didn't meet. The other
Right.
thing is the eight
Right.
hundred thousand. Just for clarification, that requirement is only if the property is zoned residential, is there a 100-acre requirement? This is commercially zoned. Right.
Give me an explanation, please, on the 800,000. How is it?
Yep. So, but like I mentioned, we're happy to execute these various agreements to get you the money you'd want, or get the school district the money they want, between a pilot, a host community benefit agreement, and or an educational contribution agreement. A pilot, yeah, so typically splits up the property taxes pro rata between town, county, and school at a set rate. We were, for the $820,000 figure, we were assuming a pilot rate for just property taxes of $4,000 a megawatt. In addition to those property taxes, we also calculated special district taxes and land taxes based on assessed values of the solar facility, of the land. So all taxes included. That said, it's open to negotiation. We can give more to the school, we can give more to the town, we can increase the number.
800,000, is it, you came up with it, or is that it? It's up there, that's-
Yeah, so the bulk of that is coming from the $4,000 a megawatt for the property taxes for the solar facility. The rest of it is coming from land taxes, which are based on the land assessed value. And the others, last portion is special district taxes, which are taxed on the land, but also the solar facility. So there needs to be an assessed value for the solar facility as well. The $4,000 a megawatt is just the going rate for upstate solar projects. It can vary though.
I've given it a lot of thought, and I personally do not think that's a good fit for the Thomas system.
I think y'all did a very good job with the presentation. And I would also like to agree with the fact that comprehensive study being done right now. We talked about the existing zoning that very well may change. We have a housing shortage right now. I expect some activities come from the lifetime facility. I'm also on the roofing area. And also,
I wouldn't have any.
nothing further. No, nothing. I guess I'll ask you the motion for executive recommendation.
So I think what you're gonna do is you're gonna get a proposed finding, which I'll read, and you can, based on everything I've heard, you can find out if you agree with it. And it'll come in a form of a motion. So the following are the proposed findings, report and recommendations of the town of Cicero Planning Board. One, in accordance with section 208 of the town code, the planning board has completed its review of the application known as CVE North America Inc. 9155 Brewerton Road, proposed tier 3 solar energy facility. 2, the applicant is seeking approval of a tier 3 solar energy system to be located at 9155 Brewerton Road. 3, the town planning board is cognizant of the scope of the project, of the proposed project, and is undertaking an extensive review of the potential impacts of the proposed projects. 4, the town of Cicero planning board has reviewed the material submitted by the applicant, its consulting engineers, as well as any additional documentation and information provided by the applicant. 5, in the process of its review, the town of Cicero planning board made an inquiry into the potential impact of the proposed project on the surrounding neighborhood and the community at large, including but not limited to concerns regarding the view shed along neighboring properties. 6, the planning board notes that there are currently roof solar facilities in the neighborhoods off McKinley and Mud Middle Road. Given the proximity of these facilities, the planning board finds that the proposed project would overburden this particular neighborhood in violation of the dictates of section 208 of the town code. 7, the planning board finds that the proposed use would not be the best or preferred use of the land in question, and that the community would be better served by preserving the land for an alternative use. 8, the planning board recognizes a comprehensive plan has not been completed and recommends that the project of this magnitude should not be approved prior to the completion of the comprehensive plan. Lastly, the town of Cicero Planning Board recommends that this application be denied based on the findings herein included, but not limited to the finding that it is overburdened of a particular neighborhood in violation of the dictate of section 2.08 of the town code.
Yes.
So now we would do a short motion to recommend this over to the board, a recommendation over to the town board. And that would be, you're gonna move for the adoption of resolution that the minutes of the foregoing findings, report and recommendation of the town of Cicero Planning Board as adopted herein be forwarded into the town board as required by section 208 of the town of Cicero Town Code.
Second. Yes.
Thank you. Good night.
Good evening. My name's Paul Ruggieri. You want me to, is this okay? I'm making that funny noise or? Yep. My name's Paul Ruggieri. I'm representing Purcell's Paints and Endurance Properties with respect to a use change for formerly Jimmy John's Eatery to a paint store, pretty well known in the area, Purcell's Paints. Since we last met, I've updated had the site plan updated to incorporate suggestions by the board and the town engineer. We're no longer going to modify the entrance to the property. The zoning chart has been added to state the number of employees and the parking spaces that are on site. We've added a comment on the site plan to state that there will be no changes to the utilities, the site grading, or the sanitary sewers, and additionally, the lighting on the site. Those structures will all remain as they are, as they currently exist. We added page L2 to show the existing fire hydrant location and its proximity to the existing structure. We also added landscaping to the south of the property, which is parallel with Circle Drive East. I asked that they provide me some pictures of the planning. Are you interested in seeing what the planning species look like? I brought some pictures. There's a utility easement where we're placing these plants. So we don't want to put any trees or any deep rooted plantings in that area. We also changed the screening around the trash collection area from chain link. We're removing that and installing a vinyl fencing in its place. The repairs that were suggested to the existing pavement will also be made, and that's indicated on the site plan as well. I think that covers our changes that we made. And any questions? And I think Purcell's will be a good partner for the community.
So, I'm excited about this. However, what was the reasoning for not having it included in better landscaping?
There's either the sewer or the sanitary, or the storm sewer easement.
The
sanitary
sewer runs through there.
You're not
They
gonna-
do with the easement and, we don't want trees
Okay,
located in the.
okay, yeah, I mean, that's the only request that you get money, landscaping and you can, we always try to make. Better. Where was, is the stop sign located on there?
Yeah, it's on the west side, I think the southwest.
At the bottom,
It's over here.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything, like people bring back paints to you guys too, like do you guys dispose of paint or?
Technically, the answer to that is no, but I am aware that they do take paints that come back, but there is county collection as well of those things.
And then what kind of waste do you have in-house just because of like, testing or mixing or something up there, it's, you know, I'm sure there's some kind of biohazard area, is there anything special that?
I would have to get back to you on that, to exactly what their procedure is. It's minimal. I've been in the DeWitt store where they do most of their business and their painting. There's no collection vessel in that facility. They don't have, if you've watched them mix paint, that there's very minimal, if any, colorant escaping in any area. There's no floor drains. There's really nowhere for it to go. It's a pretty clean process.
And then, the lighting, the appropriate lighting for,
The hours of operation are, that I can answer. They're 7 AM to 5 PM, typically Monday through Friday. If, depending on the use and the nature of interest, they plan to be open on Saturday, 7 AM to 2 PM. Sunday, typically they're closed. But I could foresee they would have a few hours on Sunday if it was appropriate. And then you had another question. I already forgot what it was.
lighting.
Lighting will be similar to what it is. What we're simply doing is changing out the existing fluorescent lighting with LED lighting. That's what they run in Cicero or it's in DeWitt currently. That would be on an as needed basis. Well, I think they offer discounted paint prices on return paints and paints that for whatever reason. Yes, that's what they do in DeWitt, and I assume that's what they'll do here. Right. So these are fairly low profile plants. The reason they were selected was for the height and also their resistance to snow and salt, and so right next to the main road. Right, you don't want us to interfere with you wouldn't want large plantings there, is that what, my understanding you correct? I don't believe these to be large. Yep, you will.
I'm all set.
Okay.
Color of the fence.
I would. Yeah. I think I would prefer it to be brown-ish, not white. Is there a preference? I mean,
I just want to go to the record.
brown. Yeah, it would be close to the building. It'd be a darker color. An earth tone.
Set, thank you. All set. All set, thanks. Yes, we do.
All right, I have one more thing. If you make sure that these are native, I put it up in one of them. So we prefer native. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you're gonna move the adoption of resolution approving the application known as Jerry Home Services LLC, Paul Jerry II, 5785 East Circle Drive, proposed paint store. This approval is figured condition on the following: one, the color schemes, renderings, and or elevations presented by the applicant and the planning board in regards to this application will be incorporated by reference into the site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items presented herein. Two, the fence will be painted in a manner to match the color of the building. And three, the landscaping will be as much as practical in local native vegetation.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Yep, have a good evening. Appreciate it.
Next agenda item is for zone change recommendation.
Good evening, Tim Coyer, News and Romans. Just got a couple of simple maps to add to my. Okay. So yes, this property is located on Island Road. It's roughly 3.7 acres. The applicant is looking to go from a zone change of agricultural to industrial. The first sheet is just the basic boundary survey that we did that highlights the property. The second sheet is just the existing zone, well, kind of existing zone change map. There's no official zone change map at the moment. But it shows where the neighboring property to the east is industrial, all to the north and west of us is agricultural, to the south of us is the RM Island Hollow project, and on the south side of Island Road, there's industrial all over there. The third sheet just kind of outlines a Google image map of what's around in the area. And the final sheet that I handed out was rough site plan, what the applicant's looking to do with the property. So we actually started off coming in, we were gonna come in with just a site plan application for this project. He wants to put up a whole style building for storing his winter trucks. One of the things he also wants to do with the property is he wants to build an office space in the front of this building for now, and he wasn't gonna use it at first. And because of the recent change of the agricultural district with a special use permit, he would need a specific use for that office portion with the agricultural district that we're in. He doesn't have a specific use at this moment. So he wants to still be able to build that for future use. But with the ag district, he wouldn't be able to do that. So that's one of the big reasons why we're looking to zone change this to industrial right Yep. Yes, so during the town board presentation, Mr. Carp did bring up wanting to limit some of the uses that are in industrial. We have no problem to some reasonable uses to narrow it down and put a covenant on the property. If the board has any suggestions to that, we're open to suggestions with that.
So we're not to the point yet where you're gonna show what this looks like. That's no change. At that time, we can limit the limitation, just because it's.
Correct. So the current owner has landscape and property maintenance business right now. That's what he's gonna store in the big portion in the back. He has work trucks that he uses in the wintertime specifically. He actually has them off-site renting in a different storage facility. That's what he specifically wants to use this building in right now is for his winter trucks for plowing. So that's the typical, the use for right now. And again, it'd be similar uses that we think that would be supportive with this property.
I guess I'm concerned about your, wanting to build an office, but not knowing why right now. So I guess that concerns me.
So he doesn't have a specific, he has the company, he might move the office in, but he doesn't need to right now. And it's also for future use, like if he ends up not using the building, selling it off, it adds more value to the property if there's an office building in there. So for future tenants and stuff. He doesn't want to just have a pole barn sitting on a piece of property. It just, it's redundant in this town. He wants to have something that somebody else can use for the whole site. No, this is Mr. Paul Massey. He has a Grasshopper Landscaping, I think is the name of his company. So he does lawn care, he does snow plowing in the winter, and he does a couple other things with property maintenance. Yes. Yes.
Along with that, he would have. Industrial, to very explicit.
Okay, yep, we don't have any real problems with that.
No, thanks.
With the restriction on fine. Well, it would be if it gets up to and approved by the town. Right now, you're gonna make the recommendation would be based on the fact that you've looked at all the things you could do in an industrial zone. And you wouldn't recommend the zone change unless it was restricted to certain types of uses. The town board would then get that recommendation, knowing that the reason that the planning board for the recommendation was if it's limited to those uses, and then they would ultimately make that decision. But they could limit the uses with something with a covenant that runs with the land. Yes, we can. Just need to know what the proposed use would be.
Well, he's got a landscape company. I'm thinking small light industrial uses. Would you want us to just come back with a list, or is light industrial something that can be, is that limiting it enough?
Kind of like this slippery slope that we can't get out.
I don't mind putting the limitation. I don't like right here off the top of my head. I don't know if I could come up with a specific list of uses. Is it something we could come back and with the list?
It's up to you, really, a board question. If you want to enumerate the list, or you can leave it up to the town board to come up with that list, and you can tell the town board in your recommendation that you wouldn't recommend this unless they limit the uses in scope. Something that recommend specifically look to then the applicant, what they're seeking to do now and in the future, I mean, somebody's gonna have to codify that. Based on what they're doing, you get the site. I don't have. You go to the last page. Vehicle truck storage.
Yep.
Truck storage and operation of truck. So we could say that limited to the uses as set forth in the site plan. Well, I mean, ultimately, the town board's gonna have to step this out and say exactly what the uses are. Hopefully they respect it.
Is another zoning category more appropriate that would restrict uses but still allow this use? For instance, general commercial plus, would that be more appropriate for the proposed potential uses for this property where it allows light industrial uses as a general commercial plus? Or the gas station? Well,
I think you gotta go through the industrial code and exclude look at the allowed uses in the industrial district and exclude the uses you would not want to see. That would be my method.
That's not a bad way to do it, then by process of elimination, they have what's left. You could leave that to the town board and hopefully they exclude those uses. But right now, you're like, you're gonna recommend it and say. Recommend it, but we understand that we do not recommend it with every possible use. You know, that then you could have an industrial, that it should be limited to uses that's set forth in the site plan, and then the town board. When they approve it, or should they decide to approve it, could approve it with specific limitations. I would
Yes.
think.
Mr. Carp definitely wants to limit the use for sure. I think there's like 7 or 8 specific uses in industrial.
there's a listed uses.
Man,
It's a recommendation, so they're gonna have to, they're gonna have to vet this and try to focus it into like a narrow field. Because once this is done, it's done. And so the person who buys this land next will be limited to whatever the town board approves, if they approve it. So we can give them a recommendation, they're gonna go through it anyways, and they're gonna add it, and they're gonna focus it anyways. I mean, so we can just say based on what the opportunities do, pick up, start, partly, obviously, unfortunately. To those set forth in the site and then the. It's gonna be a way of 10 years from now, they wanna do something different. Gotta be a way they can go back to the town board, ask for a change. And you say that we're gonna say this piece of property is only used for this for the next 150 years. Well, if I were crafting that resolution for the town board, I might do it by covenant that runs with the land that can only be changed with permission of the town board. So at some point, well, hopefully somebody up, the next level will do something like that. But so the town board ultimately could do that, and you could go back to the town board and petition. You know, someone that is legally representing the town board, so. I think they'll come on that person. Right. But I mean, that's what you do a covenant that runs with the land that can only be changed by. With the agreement of the town board, and then they can come in and seek the change. I hope so. That other guy is. I forget that.
No.
No, it's just a recommendation. On the recommendation. Okay, you're gonna move to the adoption of a resolution recommending the proposed zone change application known as Paul Massey 6341 Island Road, Ag 2 Industrial, which recommendation is made with the following conditions. 1, the planning board would not recommend this property for all industrial uses and would therefore recommend this zone change if the uses were limited in scope to avoid a range of permitted uses under the industrial designation. 2, the use will be limited to those as set forth in the site plan, although the uses allowed in the industrial zone should be excluded. Would you like to make that one, or a second? Second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
That agenda item is for a code 2 by 100 building in Bergamot. That is property in 80 and 55 general code 4.
Good evening. I'm Joe Mastriani with Mastriani Engineering. So this is just south of East Tap Road, the intersection. It's in the air park. Immediately north of it is the fire station. And the fire station wraps around L-shaped around our property. So what's gonna go in here is gonna be Salinger Trucking. Salinger Trucking, I want to introduce the owner in a second. They basically transport mail for the US Postal Service, and they have quite a few locations and they're doing this around the country. So. So what they're proposing to put up is a 80 by 100 foot pole barn, concrete floor to service the trucks. And there will be probably approximately 4 people at any one time in the building or on the site. Okay. So if you look at what you got there, we meet all the setbacks all the way around. The front part there. Front part, this is all existing asphalt. Okay, we do have to trim a little bit of it off here to meet the setbacks in the back and everything. Basically, that's it. There will be, I believe, 6 doors across the front. In the back of the building, back here, you look at, there's the architectural page or a floor plan page. The owner is going to put in a office, a mechanical room, and a bathroom. And that's on A1. See that? We do have. We changes it. Oh. I want to get up to the utilities and the landscaping. Okay. We have a small, what I'm putting on here is we're not disturbing an acre or anything. But in the back, I am putting in a swale to collect stormwater from the site. There's not gonna be that much. It's gonna be about 2 foot deep, roughly. And some grading out in the front here to make it flow the right way. On the next page. Okay, so we're just gonna have we do have gas and water available along General Irwin Boulevard. And on the next page after that, we have our landscaping plan. Okay, so we're putting some white pines up here and then some crabapple trees around it. Not really putting much back here because we're gonna have the swale. And also we're here, well, I said we've got the fire station, so we're not looking to put much there. So pines here, and then the crab apples down the side. Okay, if you continue on. There is kitty corner from this property. Our site is down here. Kitty corner is another piece of property. It's right up on the road. It's on the corner. The same owner for that.
Yeah,